Cool. All right, we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome along to the Comet 26.1 Iapetus release webinar. And there's two of us today. My name is Mason. I'm based in New Zealand. And today I'm also joined by my colleague, Adam, in the US, who has recently joined us as product manager.
Hey, Mason. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So thanks everyone who's joined us on the webinar. We're coming to you live today. It's 9 a.m. here in New Zealand. What is it for you, Adam? Must be 2 p.m., 1 p.m.?
3 p.m. in the afternoon, right here in New York City.
We're so close. Good morning to everyone, or good afternoon, evening, whatever time zone you're in. To make the time zones easier, you're welcome to subscribe to notifications about when we go live. It's all on the webinar platform. You'll get a notification that shows you in your own time zone when our next presentation will be. And after the webinar, we will post the recording on YouTube, so you're welcome to watch it later if the time zone doesn't suit. But if you are live with us this morning, then thanks for coming along. Usually about half an hour, so I hope you've got a coffee. And as a special thank you for making the live time slot, we'll do a live question and answer session. So we'll take questions as we go. On the webinar platform, there is a chat widget at the bottom right of the screen. So you can click the button to pop open the questions area. And if you have any questions during the presentation, just write them in and I'll do my best to answer them at the end. If you're a long-time watcher of the series of technical webinars, then welcome back. This is episode 35. And if you're a brand new watcher, I'll just start, as always, with the essential Comet background information, which is that there are 2 release tracks for Comet. So every week, more or less, we publish our absolute latest changes as part of what we call the Voyager rolling release series. And then 4 times a year, all of those changes get bundled up into one new major quarterly release. And we've found this strikes a really good balance of getting that early access, early feedback on our latest work, and then it builds up into something that our company then qualifies and supports for a longer period of time. And so by the time you get to a quarterly release, all of these changes, they've run the gauntlet, they're battle tested, they're ready for production. It's up to you which track you follow. But for the majority of our partners who follow the quarterly releases, we have just done that bundling up. And so we're very proud to have launched our latest release, Comet 26.1 Iapetus, which rolls up all the changes we've made in our Voyager series throughout the quarter. Our releases are time-based, so 26.1 is the year, 2026 in the month. This release came out at the end of January, so it's 0.1 for January. Normally this would be a 0.2 for February, but for 2026, we have changed our release cycle. After 9 years of clockwork, we're breaking tradition a little bit just to give us more time over the holiday season. And it means you guys don't have to do software updates in December. I mean, who wants to do a big software update right before the holidays? So trying out this new schedule, and hopefully we get 9 years out of this updated schedule as well. So that's about the numbers, 26.1, year.month. And as for the code name, this quarterly release is named after Saturn's moon, Iapetus. So we're currently on moons of Saturn as the code names. We've done the famous ones, Phoebe, Enceladus, Titan. We're working our way outward. Saturn's got a heap of moons, so we can use these code names for a long time. Iapetus is Saturn's 3rd largest moon, and it's the only large moon in the solar system with this kind of 2-color thing going on. Half the moon's really bright, and half of it is really dark. It's not just the lighting, some other material is there covering up half the moon. Here's another angle of it. Again, not the lighting, just something covering up half the moon. Don't know what it's made of. Most of the moon is made of ice, but that dark stuff, complete mystery. There are some theories, of course. It's probably only a thin layer, but pretty weird. There's really still a lot of mysteries out there in space. But enough about the name, enough about the moon. What about the features? So in the changelog for the release, we've listed 9 features and 7 enhancements. So these numbers are up a little bit over the last quarterly release, which makes sense because we had a bit more time because of the release date change. So Adam and I are going to talk about those new features today, starting with, of course, if you've seen our email newsletters or if you follow Comet on social media, the big thing is Proxmox support. So very excited about this one. Proxmox is a hypervisor for running virtual machines and containers. If you haven't heard of it before, it's just like VMware or Hyper-V. It's great, it's reliable, it's based on the rock solid QEMU and KVM technology. It's easy to use, but it still supports advanced functionality. It's been very popular recently, and in particular, unlike VMware or Hyper-V, it is free to use with optional commercial support contracts. And we started development on the Proxmox Comet integration last year after seeing the feature request in our feature voting system and seeing all of the excitement and energy for this new platform. And then development took place last year. We launched Proxmox support in beta in the 25.8 quarterly release, and we're very pleased to be able to move it into general availability with the 26.1 Iapetus release. So let me tell you some of the details. We've set this up as a new protected item type. So Proxmox has got some backup features in the interface. You're welcome to use them, of course, but we really wanted this to fit in with the rest of your Comet infrastructure. So if you're using Comet and monitoring and managing all of your other backups with Comet, then this will fit in completely seamlessly. And as a protected item, it supports all the usual features. Remotely configure the settings from the management console web interface. You can remotely browse files, remotely browse virtual machines, look at the job reports, and so on. So in Comet, you create your new Proxmox protected item. You click Next, and you will be prompted for SSH credentials to the cluster. So Comet can connect to any one of the nodes in the cluster and back up the whole cluster from any given node. So that's up to you. If you're running Comet from a VM inside Proxmox or from the Proxmox host itself, then you would select the node just to minimize the hops and cross-cluster traffic, but actually it doesn't seem to matter too much. And after you've entered your credentials, all you have to do is click Next and pick what VMs and containers you want to back up. Comet supports selecting individual VMs and containers, or you can select the whole node or the whole cluster and just exclude things you don't want to back up. You can also select and deselect individual disks. For instance, if you have a VM with an important OS disk and a less important temporary disk, you can exclude a specific disk. And that's really it. From then on out, it's just another Comet protected item running regular Comet backup jobs. Everything else is just like Comet: scheduling, email reports, deduplication. So we'll deduplicate data across VMs, which is great. We'll also deduplicate today's backup against yesterday's backup so that you only use incremental storage space. The feature supports granular restore, so you can restore individual files from Windows NTFS, Linux ext4, and XFS, and that's based on Comet's existing mature support for those file systems. And maybe most interesting is we support cross-hypervisor restore for any of our supported protected item types that sort of deal with disk images and virtual disk images. So for instance, if you are currently a VMware user and you're using Comet for VMware backups, you could restore those VMware backups directly into Proxmox, and that's your migration plan. Additionally, because of the deduplication, Comet can deduplicate your old VMware backups against a new Proxmox backup. So you don't have to restart your backup jobs from scratch. You don't lose your backup history when migrating. So this can be a really powerful migration feature. And this goes both ways. It goes in every direction. You can restore from Proxmox into Hyper-V. You can restore from Hyper-V into VMware. You can do a physical disk image backup job and then do a physical to virtual migration into Proxmox and so on. So it's really cool new feature and capability for Comet that is available now in Comet 26.1 Iapetus. And if this all sounds familiar to you, perhaps you were here for the last 25.8 Titan webinar where we launched the beta program. And for those longer time Comet users, what's new since the beta? So what's new in 26.1 Iapetus compared to 25.8 Titan? The first major thing I would say is change block tracking. So Comet always deduplicates data together. We are always, no matter what, we're only storing the changes. Comet is incremental forever, no matter what data we read from Proxmox. Still, the backup can be faster if we only read the data that's changed. So Comet 26.1 Iapetus introduces change block tracking for Proxmox. Comet will see what blocks have changed for the Proxmox VM and read only those changes, and then perform, figure out a synthetic full disk image and then deduplicate that with the last disk image. So we are incremental read, incremental storage, and then instant full disk restore of any backup point. So that's nice. We've also added V9 support. So this is in addition to our existing Proxmox 8.4 support. So with Proxmox updates generally being free, we've seen people upgrade their Proxmox clusters straight away. On VMware and Hyper-V, people seem to stick on one version for a very long time, but on Proxmox there has been pretty wide uptake of the new V9 versions, so it's great that Comet supports them now. Proxmox 9, it looks the same as Proxmox 8, really, but there were quite a few changes to the storage infrastructure in Proxmox. Specifically for QEMU, one of Proxmox 9's headline features was being able to stack QEMU storage drivers, and that lets you do things like have iSCSI storage and then stack VM snapshots support on top of that. And this really affects the level where Comet hooks in. So a bit of effort on our side, but with the new architecture, it should be very easy for us to stay up to date with new Proxmox updates going forward. Non-root users. Oh, so I said in the last slide that Comet connects to Proxmox over SSH. And in the default Proxmox configuration, SSH it's well secured, but root is root. And so a bit of isolation is better. Comet still does need broad permissions to the cluster we have to be able to create and destroy VMs, read all their data, write their data for restore. So quite broad permissions, but at least now it can be done with sudo instead of root. So a bit more auditability, a bit more compliance. Of course, sudo is still sort of root equivalent. Restore to Ceph storage. So Proxmox supports a dozen different types of storage. I mentioned iSCSI, there's ZFS, there's LVM, thin pools. I'm pleased to say Comet can back up from any of them. During the 25.8 beta release, we could restore to almost any, and now with Ceph being added, I think we've covered everything, so we can back up and restore from any available Proxmox storage target. So that's great, and there have been many improvements. Too many to go into details, but you will find everything, I think, just works. We've polished a lot of rough edges with improvements and also bug fixes, and as you'd expect from a beta program. And so a big thanks to everyone who tried out the Proxmox feature during the beta period, during the 25.8 Titan release. Your feedback has all been super helpful. You've all really helped make this a solid experience for everyone now in 26.1 Iapetus. I'll talk about another feature. This next feature is talking about quotas and Comet. So quotas are important. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. Quotas are important. A lot of partners use them to bill their customers. You can have my customer, you can have 100 gigs of storage and 2 devices, and if you want any more than that, you'll hit your limit. Give me a phone call and I'll raise your next month's bill. Some people work like that. Other backup providers might allow any usage, unlimited usage, but then check that usage every month, figure out what your bill should be, and do sort of dynamic billing, invoicing for different amounts. And then you don't need quotas, but you have to do more accounting. So Comet lets you do it either way. Quotas are optional, but they're very popular. They're widely used. This customer gets 100 gigs. That's all. So I'm talking about quotas. In Comet, you can put a quota on various different things: protected items, virtual machine counts, Office 365 guests, number of devices in an account, and specifically storage vault byte limits. So that's storage level quotas on each storage vault. It's probably the most important of all the quota types. If you have 2 devices in an account and they're sharing a storage vault, deduplicating together, put the quota on the storage vault, no problem. If those 2 devices have got a storage vault each, so they're not deduplicating together, they've got individual storage, you've got a bit of a problem with the quota, because now quota could only be applied to each storage vault individually. So out of 100 gigs quota, you could say 50 gigs and 50 gigs, but it's not exactly fairly sharing that 100 gigs of quota. But now in Comet 26.1 Iapetus, what you can do is click the share button. So you set the quota, click the share button, and that lets you share the quota with another vault. So that individual storage vault quota has now become a shared quota. Once it's turned into a shared quota, you can then link it up to any other vault. You click the share button, and then on the other vault, you click join existing shared quota. And voila, 2 vaults share a quota together. Fantastic. That's all there is to it. It works within the same user account or across different user accounts. So you could have dozens or hundreds of users all using data from the same total pool of quota. A few more things to say about this. This feature currently needs you to enable the advanced options checkbox. You might have seen it in Comet's in the web interface, in the user menu in the top right, there's an advanced options checkbox. So turn that on and then you'll see the share button appear. And that's mainly because what we've built out here works and it's great, but it's really just the core functionality. And we have so many big ideas about doing this automatically, doing it with rules, doing it with groups, sharing based on policies, sharing based on templates, and so on, that you can look forward to in a future release. So that's shared quotas. Works great in Comet 26.1 Iapetus. What else is new? I'm going to hand over to Adam for this next slide.
Thanks, Mason. So we're pleased to announce the new Ukrainian language translation. It's available now in 26.1 Iapetus. I'm always going to mess up that pronunciation, but hopefully they get easier from here. Little information on Ukrainian language. As you can see, 40 million speakers, mostly spoken in Ukraine, with a large diaspora and growing due to current unfortunate events. It's a beautiful language spoken all over the world. It's actually an official language in parts of Brazil. It uses a Cyrillic alphabet, Comet's second translation using this alphabet. This is the 16th language that's been translated into in Comet. It's available in the web interface, the desktop app, job reports, email reports, the installer, basically end to end. In the web interface, you can pick it from the language selector in the top right corner. You can set the language remotely for your customers. So if you want to do, a white labeled approach and set all of your clients to Ukrainian, we allow you to do that. So a nice thing here is this is actually a community provided translation. So thank you to the partner who provided this. We're committed to making Comet available in different languages. Our first option is to translate these things in-house, but most of our staff speaks English, so we're really limited in what we can do there. Our second option is an external company to provide translations, but such companies are often not aware of technical terms. I come from a cPanel background, so we know how hard these can be in an interface such as large as cPanels. If you're not careful, you'll end up with some really funny things like S3 bucket being a pale bucket. Hence, we turn to our third option, our customers. You know the industry, you know our software, you know the language. If you want to help improve Comet, we would really appreciate any language translation assistance you can offer. Our GitHub page has instructions on how you can get involved, how we can work together to make as many languages as possible available in Comet Backup. Back to you, Mason.
Cool. Thanks, Adam. What else is new in 26.1 Iapetus? Relic. So what is code signing? I'll start with a bit of background. What is code signing? Code signing is something you can set up to reduce antivirus warnings. So code signing reduces warnings from Windows Defender, from UAC, from third-party antivirus and EDR software. No scary pop-ups to click through. Fantastic, wonderful. It's worth setting up. Antivirus products, they work on various factors. There's blacklists, there's heuristics, there's reputation. Comet is obviously safe. It's not blacklisted. Heuristically, when you run it, we are backup software that installs a service, uses encryption, reads your files and uploads them to the cloud. A little bit questionable. But our reputation is these installers. The installer EXEs and installer MSIs are widely used. Comet is widely used. Antivirus has seen them before. It knows they're fine. Comet has a generally good reputation with antivirus providers. We really believe in white label rebranding. Everything we do at Comet has to consider this feature, but if you are using the rebranding feature, it does mean you can suddenly end up with my local company backup.exe. Antivirus has never seen it before, and if your antivirus can't rely on reputation, then it has to rely on those heuristics, and it can be a little bit more jumpy about warnings. It's not always a good customer experience. So code signing says I am a real company. I am attaching this exe to my business identity. And there's a level of company reputation associated with it. And as your exe gets used, it builds up reputation and that reduces antivirus warnings. So if you are rebranding Comet on macOS or Windows, this is just, I mean, it's helpful to know about. It is optional. You don't have to rebrand Comet. And if you do, you can rebrand Comet without code signing, but you will just have a smoother time with permissions and with antivirus if you set this up. So Comet has supported custom code signing for years, since about day one. This is not new. If you do go to set up code signing, used to be that you could just get a key file and add that into Comet, and that would be all there was to it. But today, in 2026, often you end up buying something like this. This is a SafeNet Gemalto brand smart card, the current most popular brand from most code signing companies that I've heard of, at least. It looks like a USB flash drive. Actually, it's a special hardware security device, or HSM, that holds a private signing key, which is great. These work fine with Comet. In Comet, you plug them into the Comet server, use the PKCS11 option, tell Comet where the USB driver is, done, no problem. Until you think my Comet server is hosted in the cloud, or I'm using Comet hosted, how on earth do I plug a USB device into a cloud server? And there are some weird ways you can tunnel USB over IP. Fascinating to read about. We do have another option in Comet, which is to use Azure Key Vault. So Azure, this is a service inside Microsoft Azure. They have data center racks plugged full of these things, and you can just rent them for $5 a month for the high quality HSM ones. But if you've somehow ended up with one of these USB keys and you do want to use it, particularly with Comet hosted and cloud servers, in Comet 26.1 Iapetus, we have a new option, something called Relic, which is a free and open source key signing server app made by the nice people at SAS Software. So what you do is you install Relic on your own server, you self-host it, plug in the USB key and set up a password, and then put the IP address into Comet, and then Comet can remotely access that USB key over Relic. So that lets you use those USB keys from the cloud or from Comet hosted. So in our documentation, there's a fully worked example of setting up Relic, and because it's open source, maybe you can get AI to help you install it. And so that's Relic support, new in Comet 26.1 Iapetus. Another quick new feature this quarter, multiple program outputs. So I've been talking a little bit about Proxmox, the latest new protected item type in Comet. And Proxmox is great and wonderful, and we're really excited to have that out of beta and into general availability for everyone. With Proxmox, Comet now supports, if I count these right, 13 protected item types, at least in this screenshot, which 13 is a lot. But everyone always just has one more app, right? There's a long tail of additional apps that honestly, we don't have protected items for everything yet. We will continue to add more types, but until then, how do you back up other apps with Comet? And you can, because Comet is extensible. If you take another application, say ChromaDB, I was looking at this recently. If you haven't heard of ChromaDB, it's a new database like MySQL. It's been popular in the AI world recently. And Comet doesn't have a protected item type for ChromaDB, but there is a command in their documentation that says ChromaDB export. And so at a basic level, one option is you can run this command before the backup job, export the data to a file, back up the data file in Comet, and then use an after command to delete your temporary export. That's fine, that works. But what's even cooler is directly streaming the backup data directly into Comet's chunking deduplication engine without making a temporary file. When you use the program output protected item type, you can run that ChromaDB export command and have the data stream directly into Comet's deduplicated blocks directly into the storage vault. One pass, no temporary files, no spooling, no buffering. So it's a way to integrate Comet with more systems without it being a big deal. Comet has supported program output for a while, but what's new in Comet 26.1 Iapetus is you can now run multiple commands in the same backup job, and each one of those commands will be stored as separate virtual files inside the same backup job snapshot. So you can ChromaDB one database, ChromaDB export another database, cache your config file and curl something as well, and they'll all run on the same schedule. Comet's retention policy will clean them all up together. So just a nice little enhancement for Comet if you have more things to back up. And there's a few new things to cover about Comet's API. So once again, starting with a little bit of background about Comet's API. So Comet's API, the Comet web interface that you're all familiar with is what's called a single page app, or SPA. And so this is a web app that runs entirely inside your browser and does all of its work by talking to the Comet API. Everything that the web app does is using our public API that is fully documented. And that's just a technology choice. It's not that important. We chose that decision early on. There's other ways to build web apps, but it does mean that anything that you can possibly do in the web can be automated with the API, whether that's looking at users, changing user settings, quotas, bulk actions, jobs, starting backups, restores, policies, all of the new features from today, like Proxmox shared quotas, setting the users to Ukrainian. It's all fully controllable. So if you're a programmer, or if you can hire a programmer, well, hey, it's 2026. Maybe you can vibe code something with AI. The world is your oyster in terms of automation. So whether you want e-commerce, reporting, integrations, Comet's API, it's fully documented. But not only that, we have ready to go code libraries and samples for many different languages on our GitHub page, and we stand by it. So people just like you wrote code to talk to Comet 10 years ago, and their 10-year-old code still works today without any changes. And that's something we're actually quite proud of. We take the backwards compatibility seriously. It does mean there's one typo in the API that, that I can't fix, but it's worth it because it means you can develop an integration for your business and have it work stably for many years. So that's the Comet API. That's not new. What is new in Comet 26.1 Iapetus is the API is faster. We have cut down the startup time for all API requests. You should see a noticeable reduction in latency. Comet is able to cache and reuse like the whole first half of an API request. So you will mostly see improvements if you make a lot of small API requests. But even if you don't use the API yourself, every other part of Comet's world does. I said the web interface, the client device does as well. So even if you don't use the API yourself, the workload on that Comet server has dropped. So if you're self-hosting Comet self-hosted, you'll see the CPU usage on the Comet server decrease because Comet server is now more efficient at handling those API requests, even from Comet itself. So that's nice, good to know. A few more things about the API. We have added tags on jobs. So backup jobs and other types of jobs. This is a new feature where you can tag a protected item or tag a single one-off backup job. And then later when you go to search through the backup job history, you can see the tags that were used. This doesn't affect retention or scheduling or cleanup of old data, but if you are using the API, this can help you find specific jobs. Another new thing, job IDs for created jobs. So this is my favorite one. The API to create a backup job now directly gives you back the job ID, and we've used this in the Comet Management Console so that when you start a backup job from the Comet Management Console, now it takes you directly to that backup job. That's something I do every day. It's been a game changer to have that appear. Second to last bullet point, we've added dedicated APIs for protected items. So traditionally in Comet, the APIs really worked on a whole user profile. So the pattern is something like get the user's profile, make your changes, save the profile. And Comet still works like this almost all of the time. It has some benefits because swapping in your changed profile is atomic. We have a hash code system for distributed transactions. So you can say, only apply my changes. I don't want anything else to happen at the same time. I don't want to overwrite any other changes that might be happening. It's a good system. It works really well. It's just maybe not that normal or common. And I think in 2026, we want to spend our weirdness budget on the things that really matter and make Comet better, rather than things that are just just a bit confusing. So we've made it work. There's now extra APIs to get a protected item, edit a protected item, set a protected item, delete, create new ones. Not a big deal, just a little bit easier sometimes. And lastly, for this slide, Comet has a new Linux sandboxing mode. So normally with Comet, you're backing up your PC, your server, your customer's server. Your customer is backing up their server, their staff PCs, they're backing up laptops, 365, Proxmox, Hyper-V, disk images, their downloads folder. All of that is completely fine, of course, always has been. There's one situation that is a little bit different, which is when you're backing up files on Linux that belong to untrustworthy people. And most people don't do this, but for instance, if you are a web hosting company and you let potentially dodgy people upload files to your server for websites, when you have multiple untrusted users on the same machine, there's still no problem. Comet still just works fine out of the box, but people's risk tolerance is a little bit different. And so we've introduced a new feature to lower Comet's permission level in this case, as just what's called a defense in depth measure. So Comet's already secure, but we're just adding an extra layer. May as well have another. And there's some compromises when you turn on sandboxing, like it reduces Comet's permission, so it actually can't back up as much of the system. So it's not on by default, but we'll keep evaluating this for the next quarterly release. And speaking of web hosting, hand over to Adam to talk about some other cool news.
Before we continue, can you tell me a little more about that weird budget and how I get some of that?
Yeah, aren't you in charge of the weirdness budget?
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about cPanel. So I have worked at cPanel for 20 years now. If you have been in the hosting industry, or you have, purchased hosting at a large scale provider such as GoDaddy, InMotion Hosting, if you've done any kind of shared hosting, chances are you've hosted on a cPanel server. So cPanel as a whole powers millions of sites on the internet. I think WebPros as a whole, we power over 100 million websites, from WordPress to static websites to basically everything. If you've not heard of cPanel specifically, there's a reason for that. A lot of customers white label our solution. Just like Comet Backup, we believe that we provide software to our customers, and they are free to sell it how they see fit. They know their customers best. We want to create good integration paths so they can sell to their specific customer. So we've got a lot in common. cPanel has had backup softwares. We have third-party backup software in our ecosystem. We have our own native backup software. Bringing Comet on board kind of narrows those choices, and we can make Comet the best in class when it comes to backups on cPanel. So great news. As of 2025, cPanel and Comet are both part of the WebPros family. I made this transition to being part of the WebPros family probably 5 or 6 years ago, and now it's Comet's turn. I've actually taken a position working with Comet, and they are going through all the same transitions I went through years back. It's really so let's kind of get to the meat of this thing. We have been developing an integration for Comet Backup into cPanel. Currently, it will be for it'll be available to the admin in WHM. But really, we're focusing on account backups, right? So within the integration, you'll be able to choose which accounts you'd like to back up, where you'd like to back them up to, what type of storage you'd like to back them up to. And we've also give you the ability to restore, right? So it's going to be basically on a per hosting account basis, right? So you choose which account you want to back up, choose which account you want to restore, and everything is, smooth as it can be. So with being a best-in-class backup solution, you'll have all the normal things: schedules, retentions, job history, restore history, all inside cPanel and WHM. It's actually really, really exciting. So as far as storage, so we're bringing this to market with a new storage option. We'll be calling it WebPro Storage, but for those folks that have used Comet Backup and Comet Storage, it's also powered by Wasabi. So the same good experience you get from Wasabi will extend into cPanel and WHM. The first offering, it will be WebPro storage and local storage. So we'll allow you to back up to your local server as well as cloud backups. And so you get all the same advantages that you do now with Comet, with backup deduplication, compression, encrypted end-to-end. You control your data and you control your backup. So when we brought Comet online or looked at Comet's technology, it was kind of a no-brainer, especially when you're working in a shared hosting environment. Having that level of security where your backups are encrypted, not only from bad actors, but even when it's on the cloud, it's protected. It's completely encrypted. So let's talk a little bit about availability. So currently, we have about 1,400 partners in the cPanel and WebPro's partner system. This is available to all those partners now. If you would like to get a preview or you would like to sit down, feel free to reach out to adam.wien@webpros.com. I'd love to sit down and give you guys a demo. So right now, again, it is partner only. Within the next quarter, the next few months, we'll also have a retail offering. So those folks that aren't quite to the status of a partner, you'll be able to purchase this all within WHM, within the panel. You'll just be able to get started, get going, and you're off to the races with Comet Backup.
Fantastic. That's really exciting. I'm really pleased to have this thing finally come out on the market and let people try it out, because it is really a great experience.
No, I agree. Working with the Comet team has been absolutely phenomenal. This is kind of like peanut butter and jelly, the way this integration has gone. So I'm really excited for customers to see it.
Fantastic. Okay, that is coming up on time. What have we? 38 minutes. So that is all we have for today. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to pop them in the chat widget if you haven't already. Wow, I can see there's quite a few questions already. Just for a recap, I talked about the new features and enhancements in 26.1 Iapetus. Proxmox support is finally here. So this great new virtual machine hypervisor now available out of beta in Comet. The protected item type supports backing up VMs and containers, cross-hypervisor restore and migration, and there's been many improvements since our beta launch in the previous quarterly. I talked about the new release schedule, so you don't have to do big software updates in December. Shared quotas, so you can share a storage quota across multiple vaults or even multiple users. Adam covered the new Ukrainian translation and how you can help translate Comet into other languages or just fix up all of our typos. I talked about code signing, antivirus, the new Relic feature for being able to use those USB tokens in the cloud. Program output, protected item type, now supports multiple commands. The API is faster. You can put tags on jobs. Clicking a job takes you straight there in the web interface. New APIs for adding and editing individual protected items. And of course, new Comet Backup for cPanel plugin. Any questions? It's actually been a really big quarter. I know it was longer than usual with the change of release months, but still lots of exciting stuff in Comet world.
considering the task of the cPanel integration, you guys got Herculean task.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a question here. Apart from having customer limits with quotas from storage, how can we set limits on backup types? For example, if we only want to allow file backups to customers so that they cannot start full disk backups, I believe you can set that in the policy settings. So you can create a policy that restricts the available types of protected items, and you can apply that policy to a single user or to lots of users all at once. Another question, can we set one backup job that goes to two destinations, e.g. backup to Cloud S3 storage and to local or network storage at the same time? Yes, you can set a schedule and schedule the job to go to two places. However, there's some restrictions on it, and it does do two separate jobs. And the reason for that is really complicated and to do with deduplication. Because if you want to, say, have a year's worth of backup history locally and a week's worth in the cloud, or vice versa. That really affects the available storage that we can deduplicate against. When there's different things to deduplicate against, it really affects Comet from the ground up, because everything we do is based on that deduplication. So it's effectively the same as doing two jobs anyway. So yeah, my advice is to just schedule two jobs. Another question, maybe this one's for Adam. Props on the cPanel integration. Any plans to do something similar for Plesk? I have used Plesk since the days when it was owned by Parallels. I would love to see a backup plugin for Plesk.
There sure is. So this is actually a two-pronged approach. So if you're currently using the backup manager within Plesk, we're also going to offer WebPro storage for that. So those customers that have been using Backup to Cloud Pro and purchasing their own cloud storage, we're kind of going to cut out the middleman, and you'll be able to buy cloud storage directly inside of Backup Manager Pro. Later, we will be bringing the full Comet backup integration into Plesk. And the cool thing is we're going to try and keep the experience very similar between the two panels. So it's actually very, very exciting. So if you like to sit down and look at the cPanel integration, the Plesk integration is going to be very, very similar. So you can kind of see what's coming.
Cool. Yeah, just doing one thing at a time. Let's get cPanel out the door. But yeah,
yes.
Really looking forward to that too. Another question here, what's the recommended way of implementing Proxmox backups with respect to where to put the agent? And that's a really good question, because Comet is very agent based, right? You have to install Comet and then it does all the work. It does the encryption, compression, deduplication, upload. That is real work that, has to be done somewhere. So your options for this are to put Proxmox just on a completely unrelated computer and back up over SSH, or you can put it on a VM inside Proxmox, or you can install it on the Proxmox host itself. There's pros and cons to all of the options. My advice would generally be put it on a VM on the same Proxmox cluster, because then you've got a little bit more control over CPU and RAM limits of the backup agent. And it's also not necessarily sending a huge amount of data over the internal network, right? It's still only one network hop away. But it does depend a little bit on your hardware, your configuration. But as a good rule of thumb, I would say as a VM on the same cluster. There's a question here, does this update address the non-scheduled jobs issue? I think I know what you're talking about. And yes, yeah, the scheduler in 26.1 Iapetus has all known issues resolved. And that should be rolling out to the Comet hosted cluster as well this week. Follow-up question, for that situation where we need to do two jobs, will we be able to do job chaining? Scheduling jobs is difficult when the end time is unpredictable. I understand completely. My only suggestion for you right now would be, please check out the feature voting system. I believe there is a feature request for a very similar idea, and if you could upvote that, it would really help with our planning and prioritizing. $10 seconds for more questions. We're a little bit over time. I think that's all the questions we have time for today, but hey, we still want to hear from you. If you have any questions at all, we are always happy to help out. We're more than happy to hear your questions by ticket, through the ticket system in account.cometbackup.com. You might have seen we upgraded the ticket system, and now you can email replies to your ticket. Or you can just email us directly, hello@cometbackup.com. Or did you know we do support phone calls? Adam's in the US. The bulk of the Comet team is in New Zealand. We do have support teams for round-the-clock technical support. We're currently growing. We're hiring more support staff in more time zones. But if you want a sales call, or if you want really advanced technical support or troubleshooting, it's still a little bit complicated. So we'll need to figure out a good time that suits everyone. So we've got the schedule booking system, and we're more than happy to jump on a call. Often that's a very quick way of clearing the air and getting answers to any questions you might have. And that's all from us here at Comet Backup. Hopefully you've managed to take away some useful information. Please check out the latest version of Comet, 26.1 Iapetus. All users of the previous quarterly, 25.8 Titan and earlier, you are encouraged to upgrade to get the latest version of Proxmox support, but we're happy for you to continue using older quarterly versions if you feel like it. Hope you're all keeping well and safe, and you can expect another webinar for the next quarterly release in 3 months' time. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.